this computer. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. We're going to have a great session today. We're going to talk about story maps. So I'm Shana Crosson. I work at the University of Minnesota. I do a lot of story maps with classes. Actually, I have to jump out during the lunch session today and go teach a history class about story maps. So I do a lot of story maps. They are really powerful tools, and I'm really excited to talk about them today. So before we get started though, I would love to just get a little feedback for those of you who just joined. I'm gonna put this chime in link just to get some idea of if people have, who's had experience with story maps. So a couple people have never used them. Awesome, a couple of you who have. So I'm gonna rely on those of you who have built story maps to help me out here to give some ideas. And a couple of you have had students build them. So this is exciting, awesome. This will be very good to get us started. I am going to get rid of my bookmarks, I think. There we go. So great, thank you so much everybody for putting that in there. That's helpful. So I've got a good mix of people, and please feel free. Molly, can you wave? Molly will be helping out today to make sure that if you have any questions, she'll be watching the chat. So, all right, I'm gonna step in here for a second. Yep, and I am. Molly, can you verify it is recording, right? The little record button is going. I'm gonna stop share for a second. Nope, it is. That's what I needed to see. All right.
Sorry, I was looking for it. I found it. It's recording.
It's in a different place when you're sharing. So, okay. So let's jump into story maps. I want to make sure we get through this in time and that we have time to answer questions and all that kind of good stuff. So let's talk a little bit about, come on. So here's the plan. We're going to run, we just did that story maps question. We're going to run just really quickly through some spatial thinking, but I think I'm not going to spend much time on that at all. And then we'll talk about what are story maps and then 2 different ways that we can use story maps as teachers. So what I think the story maps really are the amazing piece for is it allows us to use maps as data visualization. I'm going to talk a little bit about that and why we want students building their own maps. And the story maps are a way that allows students to explain their reasoning. It gives them a map right in there. They can explain their reasoning and thinking either when students are building story maps or when they're looking at other people's story maps. It provides that context. It provides some elements around what the students are experiencing. So how do we see data visualization? Nope, that's not what I wanted to do. So I'm going to just quick show an example of some data visualization. I'm going to show you some data that is the last permanent addresses of the approximately 110,000 Japanese Americans who were evacuated following Executive Order of 9066 in 1942. So here's the data. It's available in a story map, which I love. The Library of Congress makes this data available for students to work with, to do whatever they want with, to make their own story maps. But they also have a visualization of this data because we can see one Japanese American family was in Battle Creek, Michigan, who was evacuated, and there were 146 in Biggs, California. So that's one good way to look at it. But then we put it in a map, and students can do this, and you get that visualization. And that visualization gives us so much information so quickly. And what I love about story maps, and I can show the story map that this came from, or if students are doing their own, is then we can make sure that they understand what this means. They're not just saying, look, it's red over by San Francisco, but we can make sure that they understand what that means by adding context and explanation to it. Another great example of data visualization is the Mapping Prejudice project. If you are in the Twin Cities and haven't looked at the Mapping Prejudice, or in Minnesota, I highly recommend looking at the Mapping Prejudice project. It is a fantastic way of looking at, it's just mappingprejudice.org, I believe. The patterns that we see in, let's just go over there. The patterns we see of historic covenants, which were restrictions on who could live in certain places. You could not have people of African-American descent or Asian descent. The word, that was not the words they used. You could not sell your property to non-white people. And this has had a huge impact, not only when it was in when it was in effect in the teens, 20s, 30s, and 40s, but it has significant impact on us yet today. And if you look at this map, this is a time slider map of this, you can see the spaces where the covenants were. And if you get students to overlay current data of economic or socioeconomic data, you can see how this has a huge impact on how Minneapolis and Hennepin County is today, and how that redlining is a systemic racist thing that we can see its impact today. And what story maps do to this is it allows them to take this data. They could take this, well, not this map, but they could take this type of data, put it in a story map, and write context around it. But the other reason that I love to have students making their own maps is when students often see these maps as images. They don't understand, by having them build the maps in a story map of one way, there's two different ways we can build that, is they start to see maps as data, and they understand that the data comes from somewhere and that they too can be the data creators, which is one of my other slides. They realize that somebody made those maps, that there was a choice. So there's some digital literacy going on in here about teaching what the maps mean. And really empowering students to be map makers is amazing. And we see, you all see this with your students. And this is where we just I love using story maps, and the new story map builder, we'll talk about that, is a game changer in this. So what is a story map? What am I talking about? For those of you who haven't used them, what in the world am I talking about? So a story map is a digital product, a digital kind of a website that combines maps, of course. Well, I have a little secret. You don't have to use a map in a story map, but we don't like to tell people that. But it's just a really powerful visual presentation tool. Maps, text, of course, and I'm going to talk a little bit about writing and the multimodal levels of writing that it allows. Images, very powerful visual tool. It can use video and audio, and they're adding more things all the time. I'm not sure what they're going to add next. So those are the pieces of a story map. Let's look at a couple story maps. So one of my favorite story maps is this one called Justice Deferred. And you can see I'm a historian, just to let you know, I worked in public history for 25 years. So this one I love because it has primary sources in the background. It has text, and you can see these different levels of text. It has quotes, so primary source material. They're looking narrative. So this one was built by the Library of Congress. This isn't something we would expect students to build, but I know AP US history teachers who use this story map as part of their content instead of what's covered, the 2 sentences in the textbook that's covered about this. The story map is a very powerful way of teaching this content. Look at these primary sources, these photos, look at these photographs and what they tell. There's a whole lot of layers of questioning that you can get about these photos. There's so much you could do with using a story map like this as a teaching tool. Just the mix of the primary sources, again, the different levels of text and the interpretation of the content. This is one of my absolute favorite story maps. Oh, I know what else I want to share. I want to share the slides. I am going to share these slides with you as well. Why is it doing that? I think I just want this much. I think that will work. Let me know. So I just wanted to share. Now we've got a ton of links. Just wanted to share those slides. The Embattled Borderlands is another really interesting story map. So let's look at these elements. Again, we talked about visuals, so you can see these really powerful visuals going on here that are telling a story. Text, we talked about, again, different layers of text. Header text, this kind of interpretive text, the Justice Deferred had primary source text in it. And the maps. This map happens to be an image. It's not an interactive map, but a lot of them do use interactive maps. And I'm not sure if this one has any interactive maps in it, but you can see how all of these different pieces are layering together to tell a story. And a couple of you I know said that you have used story maps to teach with. So I'm gonna ask you if you have favorites in a minute. I'm gonna show one here about a way story maps. So story maps tell stories. They're really good at that. They're really good at displaying data. I'm just gonna pull this one up, and in here, this is a project I did with the class last year, and I'm actually about to do it with this fall's version of the class. We had primary source data that talked about the Japanese cities that were bombed in World War II. Each student was assigned a city. And now I know how I'm gonna do this piece. Katie showed in the last session how to use the attachment viewer web app. And so that's how I'm gonna do this piece in a couple of weeks. Each student was assigned a city and had to fill out a survey 1, 2, 3 with the data. It was not a high impact assignment on the student, but when you put it all together, the students wrote a short piece, they found an image, and they had to find some data, some numbers. But once we put this all together in the story map, this is displaying a whole bunch of different types of data, and we just showed different visualizations of the data that the students put in. It was a very low stakes assignment for the student that had a super high impact on the content of the course. Follow a journey. This is really a lovely map that it's a tough topic, but it really is well told, this story. This story is following journeys of Syrian refugees, and it's visualizing. When I did this with a group of students last week, I showed them this map. They're plotting journeys of Holocaust survivors. And so I showed them this map as an example of a way to plot journeys. They were very taken by just the geography of seeing how far the people had to travel, the visualization of that geography. So in this map, there are separate story maps. Students brought up the impact of the visuals and of their story. So being able to tell this story through powerful visuals, again, primary source material, maps. This one's a little more of an interactive map that shows the places where people lived and where they moved. And we can show a little bit later on kind of how you could build, not this is a different builder, that doesn't matter, but how we can build something like that later on. All of these are linked out of this presentation that I posted, so if you want them. Comparing, again, I'm a historian, but this works really well. This example is, you can use it for history projects, but this example I'm going to show is one about showing some storm change, so science as well. Coastal flooding, it is under, where are the data telling us? So you can create story maps that show kind of a before and after. If I can find this map, I can never find it in here. There it is. So the swipe maps, come on. Anyway, oh, here it is. So this shows sort of what the blue areas are, places that will likely experience flooding, and the areas in green are low elevation. So you can swipe these maps over existing maps in order to make determinations, look at the patterns and the relationships. The important thing about the story map is the story map allows there to be context, which is what I've been talking about all along. This one is a beautiful map, again, showing, let's see if I can put the voices of the canyon. So this one's just gonna show you change over time because it shows a lot of different things, but it shows voices, so really powerful storytelling. The visuals are very powerful here. And this is showing places over time, how the ownership of the land has changed over time. Really a powerful example of using story maps to tell a history of a place. So those are all ways that we can use story maps. I'm going to just show a couple other examples because we want to see. There's so many story maps out there that talk about COVID and coronavirus and mapping because there's just a lot to talk about. So it's not just history topics. There's a lot of science topics, all over the place. So again, Maps, these ones, I think this one has a lot more interactive maps to it. Oh, infographics, this is coming out, this must be coming off a dashboard somewhere because that looked like it was, yeah, it's coming from Johns Hopkins. What other examples do I have? Grizzly bear, this one is lovely. Again, and these are things students can put together, and we'll go through that to talk about how students can put these together. Again, visuals, text. We do a lot of work at the University of Minnesota with story maps about writing, which was not a place we expected it to really have an impact, but we're working closely with the Writing Center just to talk about these different levels of writing. It's very different than writing a paper, but the multiple modality of using visuals to communicate, using these different types of writing, and writing for a digital project is very different than writing for an academic paper. And so story maps have been a great way to talk about different types of writing. How am I doing time-wise? I think we're doing good. I'm not going to show another history one, but this one's great. It's got some 3D elements in it, which are really fun to see that. So I wanted to give you a chance to explore the Story Maps gallery. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about, there's two different story map galleries. One is the classic story maps. These were the original story maps. Story maps first came out in about 2012 or 13. Someone can correct me on that date. It was about that time. And it was what is now called the classic story maps. They had different templates for a variety of reasons. Esri rolled out a new story map builder about a year ago. And for us, it's been really a game changer. We loved these classic templates, but they took a lot more of our time to teach the technology. They're still fantastic. And there's a lot of really fantastic story maps that have been built in here. A lot of Library of Congress maps, different colleges and universities and different places have submitted maps. Over here, you can do some searching in here to find maps that meet your needs. So that's one option. The other option is, nope, not there. Where did it go? Okay, I'm gonna have to go back and find it. Is the new story map builder.
The link was on the classic page if you needed it.
Oh.
Up at the top. There you go. Go here. Down. There you go.
So this one also has a story maps gallery. It's a little bit different, but it's still worth exploring. So I wanted to give you those of you who have taught with story maps as content, if you have favorites you want to share or talk about, that would be great. Otherwise, I wanted to give you about 5 minutes to explore these story map galleries and see if you could find a story map that you could use with your classes. But those of you who have done it, if you have one you want to pull up and talk about in a few minutes, that would be great. Otherwise, I'm going to give you those 5 minutes to explore. It's the most excruciating quiet. And while you're exploring, take a look at how the elements of the story map work in this story. Okay, I'm gonna give you 1 more minute to look at story maps. As you're looking, if you would like, I'm gonna just post a link to that kind of poll everywhere thing again. Just looking at if you have a map you'd like to share. There's 2 questions that should be open now, is to just share a map that you looked at and to share your thoughts about using the story maps. All right, let's pull back together. I'm gonna just see if, yes, does anyone want to, thanks for posting the story maps you looked at. Does anybody want to, what did you notice about this story map? Feel free to unmute, or even we can share screens if you want to show a story map that you found that you think you could use with your classes.
I can share one.
Okay, that'd be great, Molly.
Yep, I can share my screen. So this one is, I used it a little bit last year and I just realized I need to pull it up again for this year, but I teach human geography. And so there is, I think, so it's living in the age of humans, but there's multiple chapters. And so right now we're dealing with population, and this one is called The Human Reach is the chapter. And so it like starts with like, but it like goes through like how population has grown and this visualization with like the little people. But the other great thing about this one is it has a 3D like globe map. So it has population distribution, and then it kind of zooms in and it talks about particular areas of population distribution. So it's obviously like super visually appealing to students, and takes a look at lots of things that like I already show, but we oftentimes like previously would just show it on a 2-dimensional map, or even just on a, you know, takes a look at some population growth of cities, and so change over time. And I think there's one other, this map right here uses like little, I don't know what you would call those, columns to show population of cities around the world and where the biggest cities are. So.
Molly, how do you use this with your classes? Do you have students explore this? Do you teach this? Do you present it?
Yeah, I would do it. You know what? I would probably either just pull it out like during a presentation, more of like a lecture style class, and like, and probably have students have the link as well. So just kind of use it more casually, or I would create an assignment where students were looking at this and maybe answering some, you know, analysis questions.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't used this one yet with my class, but I remember taking a look at it at the end of last year and then thinking, oh, I should really use this. And then there's another one for anyone else who's AP Human Geography or just Human Geography in general. This one is about agriculture and talks about like the earth. This chapter of the living land takes a look at the available land in the world and the use, what it's being used for, like how much is farmable, how much is, and it talks about eventually crops and whatnot. So
great. Molly, could you toss that link into the chat?
Yeah, of course.
Jan noticed that the story map took a long time to load. Sometimes they do. These maps can have a lot of data in them. So sometimes the story maps do take time to load. And that would be something you'd want to think about. Jan, which one were you looking at? I don't know which map. I'm just going to share a couple of comments that you've posted on the chime in that the story map would help students go deeper into certain aspects of the story, visualizing the habitat areas where the grizzly bear lives. And I think that's one of the things maps are so powerful at doing. Maps and images work with the narrative to pull the reader toward a conclusion that the author wants to convey. Absolutely. Global and local maps to help better understand how the the issues relate to the larger objective. In this case, it was climate change. Does anybody else want to share a map that they looked at or thoughts of something about how they could use this with classes? Okay. All right, well, let's jump to the next step, which I think is in many ways, is more exciting, is when you get students actually building story maps. So we have this here, like the teachers using the story maps, doing assignments, and then we have the time when the students are doing the story maps. The strength in my mind of using story maps as student projects, definitely it adds, those of you teaching human geo or world geo, that is what you're doing, is teaching geography. Story maps can be used pretty much in any topic area. Matt Winbigler does a lot with science, and I've done tons with history. I do a lot actually now I'm starting to do a lot with Spanish and foreign language classes, having students build story maps. So it's very exciting. Again, kind of like we talked about, it's the multiple types of evidence. One of the things I love working with students at the university on this is this forces students not just to go to the text and to text to find evidence. They have to dig deep into visual archives. And honestly, I think sometimes, like when I've worked with middle school and high school students, they're better at this. They have to really dig in and find other types of evidence, video, full images, objects, primary sources, anything they have to do to find evidence. And all of these things come together to make an argument. So, and like we showed before, there's multiple levels of writing that students have to do to write story maps. This last one is, I think, another fantastic reason to use story maps is that it's a publicly facing digital project. That may or may not be what you want to do with it, but the option is there. I had a sociology class last year. Their assignment was to look at race and housing in counties in Minnesota. The whole point of that project was to send that story map to the county. And we had a couple students get invited to come do presentations to the county boards based on those story maps. So getting the assignment out in front of people besides just the teacher can be very, very powerful. So how do we do this? These are just skills from story maps. We've done quite a bit of research on skills that students get, that faculty think that they get, and all these things are things that I've talked about already. So I'm going to do a quick demo of how to do a story map, and hopefully we'll have, I'm going to try and leave a few minutes so that you can jump in and take a look as well. So let's just jump into a story map builder. So to get there, you go to, and you're free to watch me or to jump in on your own. Those of you who, anyone else who has had student story map projects want to just jump in and talk about how they've had students use them? I'd love to hear examples of people who have had students build story maps. Okay, I'll put you on the spot. Oh, go ahead.
I know, right now we have students who collected data on oaks and acorns to kind of look at the role of oaks in the ecosystem. And so they're putting together their findings. I mean, we collected data in survey 1, 2, 3, and then they're pulling that data and then pulled it all together as a collective group. And then they're putting that ArcGIS map, they're manipulating it and then putting that in and then kind of filling in the content around that. So in a story map.
That's, and have you had good luck with those in the past?
We did it this way kind of for the first time last year. So, and they were amazing, like really, really professional looking. We were super impressed. So when you say that, like public facing and wider reaching audience and that aspect, for sure, we really felt like some of these could be things students can use going forward and to post high school life. So
absolutely. Molly, did you use the classic story map templates last year, or did you use the new builder?
Most of the students pick Cascade. I mean, this is like super new to me. I team teach, so like I'm not the expert, which is why I'm here today.
We're so glad you're here.
Yeah, but some did classic stuff, but most of it,
Okay. So that's super helpful. Thank you for that, Molly. What I'm going to recommend is, so there's, again, there's two different types of builders. I'm not even going to look at the classic templates and that Cascade template that Molly talked about. A lot of the stories I showed were built in that. I'm not even going to look at that. We're going to just focus on the new builder. And there are some really good reasons not to even look at the classic builders anymore. Kylie, I don't know, maybe you'll disagree with me, but the new builder, for most purposes for students, I think is by far the most powerful tool, and it has been a game changer for us. So let's just walk through quick how to do it. So the storymaps.arcgis.com, if I log out, oh, my headphones are gonna die, but that's okay. If I log out, you can just log back in with your ArcGIS Online, your regular ArcGIS Online account. You can also get to there by going to the regular ArcGIS Online login. If that's super confusing, just start here. When I work with students, I don't usually send them to ArcGIS Online login. I send them here. This is just by far the easiest. So if you log in, whatever your account is, either if you're using our account today or if you have your own, you're going to get back to the page that you just spent a few minutes looking at, but log in and get there. I'm just going to start from scratch and start building a story. We've seen a number of these different elements in here, but I'm going to just start from scratch. A couple things to look at. So the title here, draft. This has just been the hugest game changer, whatever, for us. These stories auto save. So if you have a draft and this one says it's saved, it makes all the difference in the world. So I'm just going to do this Educator Day demo. You saw I had a lot of them. Most of mine are demos. So you can do all this type of stuff. You can tell it's saved. Here's your title. I'm going to add a cover image. I am just going to go, most of these, we find the best result is when you have a photo downloaded to your computer to upload. I'm not sure if the linking, nope, that's not working here on this upload here, on this main one. But I have, no, on my desktop, there it is. So I'm just going to grab, I have pictures from a hike I took a couple weeks ago. So I'm just going to grab them. I have no idea what these different ones are. That's not great. That's, I don't know, whatever. No judgment, please, on the quality of the video, the photos. Okay, so there I've got that image. I'm going to put that in there. Again, you want to make sure your students are thinking much more carefully about the image choices that they're putting in here. We actually recommend that students do a storyboard or plan their project out before they even touch the software. I don't know why that's taking so long to upload. Usually it doesn't. We'll come back to that because it's not even a big image. There it is. Ooh, that's a really bad one. Okay, once this is up here, you can see there's a couple things up here that I want to point out. This is an options place where you can change the perspective. If I wanted to look at that tree instead of up here, I can change where it looks. I can give a citation. This is very important, I think, for students to be able to cite their materials. The other piece I want to point out is alternative text. This is used for anyone who might be using assistive technology, and it's really just a good practice to get students to teach them how to do this. So it's just a replacement for a visual. For students, and this is not the purpose of alt text, please understand, the purpose of alt text is for people who have disabilities who may not be able to see the visual. It's also a great way, though, to have students really summarize what's in the image, and they have to tell you why. This tells why you're using it. If you don't have a good alt text, there's no reason to put it in there. Okay, actually, that's a little bit better perspective, isn't it? So once we're down here, we can add, you can just start typing right here, but there's a lot of different options in here to add. So we can add text. The text has a couple different options. You can do bolding, add links, make title case, which is a great way to separate things. If we have a title, I'm going to put start. Let's just put the start. And then I'm gonna include these other, you can drop photos in there, audio, embed websites, Twitter, whatever you want in there. You can embed web apps if you've made other web apps. I am just going to, we're gonna just put a map in there, however. Once we have a map, we have choices. Molly was talking about her students did a survey 1, 2, 3 and created an ArcGIS online map, and that's what's right here. These are all different maps that I've made for different things. So you can take an ArcGIS on a map you've made an ArcGIS online and put it in. But the other thing you can do is add an express map, which is, this to me is also just a huge game changer. Take the time to read through these different steps, things here, so you learn about them. But this is very easy to make a very quick map. These are not complex maps. They don't allow for any analysis or filtering, but they're quick and easy ways for students to make a map. So I'm just gonna search for the place where I went hiking, regional park. So that's where I went. So I'm just gonna quick add that to the map. And I could add an image if I wanted to. We'll just put something in there. Those are goats back there. That was really fun. That's, add an image and I can add some information. Let's just put another place that I've been recently for a hike. I went to the Sand Prairie. I'm not gonna remember the name of it. Where else have I gone? I went down to Crosby Farm in St. Louis, St. Paul, St. Louis, where is that? So I was hiking there as well. So I could put all these different places of where I've been hiking in the last couple of weeks. There's a place in St. Cloud. And so this is a way I can just make a very quick map that I'm gonna put in of the places where I've gone hiking. Let's change this to hikes. So I can put all these different places. Once I'm in here, I can change how this is displayed. Maybe I don't want it that big, but I want to add information. I can make it really big. Again, same sort of thing, adding the alt text in there. And you can also edit that if you want. But let's add one more thing. I'm going to add another option. Come on. Continue my story. I want to go past that. Let's do this so I can get past there. I'm going to add a map tour. They just rolled something new out. So this Explorer, you can put a whole bunch of different spots. This is a guided tour. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do a map focused guided tour. And this is if you have students who have a phone and who have geolocated points, you can just add, so I'm going to add an image here, and this will geolocate my photos. So that goes in there. And I think the links, you can do links to images here now. This is new, so that's a great thing. If you don't want students using their own photos, but something they find online, you can add the link there. I'm gonna add it. I can add a title. Usually the photos aren't quite this slow. And then edit the location. But this one, because this was a picture I took on my phone, it already has geolocated information in there. So it pops right in there where I want it to be. I can add another slide. So I can go in and grab another image. Not a very pretty one, but there really were some gorgeous photos from this walk. I'm just not finding them when I put them in here. And shed. And again, edit location, that's already in there. I might want to set this so that I'm much more closer in. Oh, not Toledo. How did I end up there? Anyway, so you might want to end, this one, you'd probably set it to be much closer in since these are so close to each other. And then I can just keep going and I can add more things. The different types of things like sidecar is very similar to the Cascade, if you're familiar with that one, where it allows you to put a floating panel or a docked panel. I like this one sometimes better. Where I can add media, I can add an image, a video, or another map. So let's just add a map. Oh, and this is great. You can pull data right from the Living Atlas to put that in there. So I'm just gonna grab this map of historic sites in Minnesota. So I'm gonna just place that in there. And then I can add all sorts of things over here. I could add images. So let's go find, I know images on my desktop, and you can't see me navigating to my desktop, but trust that's what I'm doing. So okay, and then I can add text. I could spend a lot more time demoing this, but I really want to give more time for questions. And if people want to give a shot to jump in here, you can. I wanted just to show too, you can see that it's drafted and saved. In order to make it public so someone can see it, you do have to do this publishing. You can choose it just to yourself, but if a student is handing something in, it has to be within their organization or their school, and you'd sign in to see that, or you can share it with anyone, with the public. It's highly unlikely someone's just going to be able to run across the story map. Look at that URL, it's gobbledygook. No one's just going to run across it. There are some design options. So you can do some changing on the story map if you want to make it look different. But I love this because it gives students a chance to really make it their own. They get the choice, they can do these design options and make it look like they want to. There is a new theme builder. We're not going to go through that. But I am just going to turn on this navigation piece here. And once you turn on the navigation, you'll notice this hike's pulled up here. So then I can set another setting. And let's just say I wanted to make another text and I want it to be a header. And we're going to make this fall colors. I don't know. So then the navigation goes up here. I am going to stop now and open it for questions and would love to hear your thoughts and ideas. We are finding students are not having trouble really figuring out this technology, which is great. But I would love to hear questions, thoughts of how you could use this with students. Would you try this with students? What kind of projects would you use? Would you do with this?
Shana, I did, sorry.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
I had gotten a question from Miranda on how to get an org account, an organization account, and if student accounts. So I just put the Minnesota Department of Education GIS website in the chat. So that has links for how to get your free organization account, contacts for help setting up student accounts.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
I just had a quick question regarding with this temporary account. Anything that we make, how do we access it in the future if we don't have this temporary account anymore? Anything with this temporary account, how do I access it at a later date? Do I save it in a public setting shown there, and can I access it without an ArcGIS GIS account? What's the status on that?
Yeah, so these temporary accounts I think will be around for a little while, but it probably is a good idea. You can do story maps with a public account. There are some limited features of what you cannot do, but you can do a lot with a public account for story maps. So if you think it's something you want to keep long-term, I would build it in a public account. With students, I would not use a public account at all. I would make sure you have, reach out to either the link that Katie posted up there or reach out to any of us and we can help you get an org. And the Esri also has, I think it's esri.com/schools. That would help you get an org for a school or an organization. It might be schools, not school. Because actually transferring story maps between accounts and copying them between accounts is a little cumbersome and or difficult.
It's hard.
Yeah. Did that help, Brett?
Yeah, it's just, yeah, I just didn't want to create something and then find out a year later that I can't use it again.
Yeah, these temporary accounts will be around for a while, probably. I'm not sure how long, but I would bet about a year. But if you're going to build something like that you want to keep for that long, I would create a public account or get an organization account.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I had a quick question about the picture you took from your phone and then it automatically popped up on the map. Do you just need to have your location services on your phone?
Yeah.
And you were specifically doing what type of map again? Was that
that was a guided tour.
Okay, so that's the type of map you need to have.
If you're building it right
30.
in the express map, in the story map, yeah, that's the kind of map. The express maps will not geolocate automatically unless
Okay.
that's changed. Things change on these story maps. They're working really hard on it. So.
And that's similar to like the survey 123 when you take a picture on your, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to figure all this stuff out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Depending on your phone, it might just be turning on location services for the whole device. Or it might be having to go into your like camera settings and turn on location services there.
Okay. Thank you.
That was a super fast overview, but I'm curious if people have thoughts about, other questions, thoughts about how you could use this. Those of you who have done story map projects with students, want to share any tips or tricks?
It just seems a lot more user-friendly than the classic. I mean, I haven't used the new one very much yet, but the classic was a little bit harder.
Yeah, the classic was great. One thing I liked about the classic is it gave you a structure right there. I mean, you did a guided tour and that was there. You did the cascade or the whatever. The structure was there. With the new builder, the structure isn't, you have to make decisions about the structure. But really the amount of time I spend helping students with the technology has decreased so much. It's been lovely. And like Molly said, students just run with this and we're getting really great projects in. All right, I am gonna cut this a minute early. I wanna thank you all very much for coming. If you have feedback about if this is going too fast, if this is not meeting your needs, please leave that in evaluation at the end. But I would also really look forward to seeing your student projects. So. Oh, I should share one other thing. Oh my God, I can't believe I didn't share this.
Shana, can you share the link to your slides again? I didn't see that in the message.
So I'm gonna first share, if this is helpful, this is a website that we work with at the university. Again, this is targeted at higher ed, but it certainly can be used by anybody. Okay, get out of presenting mode. Let me find my slide. This might take you right to the last slide. But the story maps that UMN.edu has a lot of sample assignments that we've used at the university. Certainly things you could look at and adapt for your use. Lots of student examples as well.
I got the slideshows on the chat right now.
Molly. All right, everybody go take a little break before 11:30. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.